Hello and welcome to another episode of Alf Zoo. Today we're going to talk about the long, nasty war between server support and IT operations. And with us is Bruce Campbell, a jaded, hurt, long-time warrior in the field. And I welcome him with honor to my table today.
Thank you, Alf. I'm almost positive I'm happy to be with here tonight.
That's what most people say.
Hmm.
Uh, there is a friction between, and this always have been, but it's becoming more accentuated right now. And that's between the service support organization and the IT operations. And to better understand why that comes, can you explain to me, who's sitting here in the field in my battle Humvee, because there's no internet at the office,
Hmm.
and explain to me why has today's what was a little bit of friction, a little bit almost legal, infighting. Why is that now almost exploded, and why is there a bloody fight between server support and IT operations?
Well, it's no secret, really, although it is kind of the little secret that people don't like to talk about. Sort of like that uncle, in the family that just doesn't really do a whole lot. Um,
Yeah.
this syndrome exists almost everywhere, and every time I've ever talked about it or ever talked to customers about it, and I talk about how are your IT operations and your IT service and support side getting along, they kind of look up around, they kind of look at their fingers, they're saying we're okay. Why do you ask? And they get defensive. And the bottom line is, and I learned this the hard way through battle scars that you can't believe, that there still exists huge amounts of disconnects and rifts between IT operations and IT support and service delivery. They really just don't like each other that much. I've been in meetings where hands have been slammed down on tables saying you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what it's on the street, say operations. You don't know what it's like to have a VP land at an airport with a blue screen and a board meeting in 45 minutes, and I got to get him up. And then the service delivery people say, that's great, but you guys are cowboys and you have no idea what it's like to run a business with compliancy and security in mind and approvals and process that makes us viable and competitive as a company. So these two factions war like the Hatfields and McCoys, and ultimately the business suffers because of it. And it's very, very clear that if this continues, there are going to be a lot of problems down the road. And one of the reasons why it has permeated as much is because the users just never really mattered that much to either side. And while support really is customer facing and they want their users and business to succeed, operations comes from a culture of we just want to keep the lights on. We've got stuff that's working, don't fix it. You've got some database that's not even real time. It's, federated and reconciled. What are you talking about? We need stuff right now that can help us solve today's problems today. And the real loser here are today's users who are now more important than ever.
Why are the users, what to some degree is the stakeholder, which is the customer, who is the endpoint of this? Why are they always being left behind? Is this
Well,
just a
because
cultural?
it is a cultural thing. I think that everybody wants to say that they want to be able to support the business and support the users. But at the end of the day, whatever needs to happen in the IT back office between support's oversight and operations fundamental making things happen and executing, are always basically ignored because the users were never really that important to both sides collectively anymore. Users even just 3, 4, 5 years ago would have taken whatever IT gave them. But we have a revolution going on right now in the front office of
What
IT.
is
And
that?
these users,
What is when we hear about the consumerization of IT and the whole shift in this, and bring your own device, and
mhm.
how does that affect the IT user relationship? Wouldn't it almost make it sour? Wouldn't we almost be more upset with these employees showing up, these civilians, almost, if you will, getting in the way?
Yeah, I mean, the users are now expecting to have what they're having at home at work. They
Mm.
want their service delivery and how they consume services to be social. They want to be able to have them sit inside their social media, experiences. They want to be able to have them mobile. They want to be able to decide which mobile device they're going to use and have that be supported just as much as a company issued PC or Mac.
Mm.
They are demanding the kinds of things that IT has basically sort of stumbled over in the past and should try and correct. And in order for that to happen, if the services side of IT and the operations side of IT don't get together and what I like to say, put on their big boy pants and actually make this kind of industrialization of the back office real, the users are going to do whatever they want. And of the 20 things users could do if they're not getting the kind of service they need, 18 of them or so are bad, including sending files to a buddy that can help them format something, not even thinking about how secure the files ought to be, or sending Outlook emails or even their whole PST file, or trying to have somebody help debug or remove a virus that they just can't get support for, and having these security and compliance breaches. I mean, there's a lot of problems associated with renegade users, and the difference between today and yesterday is today the users expect to have that, and if they don't get it, they're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah. Is it because technology is easier to understand and use that more people can get their hands on it? I mean, in the 1950s, you could argue anyone could not have brought in a computer because it cost too much, nor would they understand it. And then, the last few decades, that's changed dramatically. Is it as simple as that?
I,
Technologies.
I think it very well could be. You know, the users are more intelligent. They're more desktop and online and IT savvy. There's someone mentioned to me in a session that I went to at the recent Pink Elephant conference that in 2020 there will be 5 generations working in IT.
Yeah.
And when you think about that as a concept, the myriad of cultures and people's skill sets and what they've grown up with are going to be all across the board, from Generation Z to baby boomers. And that type of knowledge about what they can do and knowing what it should be like is going to drive them to getting whatever they need done with or without IT's help. And so it makes a lot of sense for operations and support to put aside their petty differences, get together and compromise in a way that will help support what the users need in 2013 and beyond.
And how do we make them come together? What is the solution? How do we forge a peace treaty between these two guys to help the third one?
Well, I personally think that the best way to do it is to get together and collaboratively decide on what levels of process maturity do you really have in your business right now, and to be honest with it. And there's a lot of ways to be able to identify that process maturity. I mean, one of them is to look and see how IT and service support are getting along. That's a big tell, just in general. But as they get together and they take a look at where they are and they take a look at what the users need and the needs of the users from IT as part of the viable business and the everyday, be honest where you are, and then when you decide to put a plan together of what kind of service a better union and standardization and integration and kumbaya between operations and IT support can be had, don't bite off more than you need. If what you have right now is a service desk ideology, then try and optimize that service desk a little bit. Don't try and boil the ocean and do some giant kind of integration value right off the bat. It's only going to frustrate the users, and it's going to accentuate any residual resentment from IT support and IT operations. So find out where you are, and then put a plan in place to move the ship forward slowly, but evolving in the right direction. And hopefully you are able to reach compromise in a more business-like way, and the users are the ones who benefit, and the business is the one that ends up being more competitive and viable in the future.
But you've been in this industry. You've been managing software products and marketing software products in the ITSM spot for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm.
What you just told me is nothing new. So what can we do today? Although this friction is different, but this thing of coming together, try to collaborate better, is old hats. We've heard this before. This is an issue that's been there before.
Well, we've all
Why
been
do you think we
talking
can
about
change
it. We've all been talking about why we should do it, and then both sides go, yeah, we should really try and do that. And the other side says, yeah, we should really try and do that. And then they don't.
Yeah.
And I think the bottom line is that when someone goes to jail or some 6-figure fine comes down for, breaching a governmental regulation or some sort of compliancy statement, and operations and support just can't come up with the audit trail or the provenance of where assets came from or where certain intellectual property came from, then guess how fast the CIO or somebody at a higher level is going to take these two guys and knock them together and say, you guys have to get your acts together right now. And before that happens, people ought to get just intelligent. And they've never had better tools than ever to be able to make the leap in automating and industrializing the back office of IT so that we can help consumerize the front office of IT to be able to give the users exactly what they want. And with
What
the
would that
tools that are
mean?
available today,
What
it
would
should
that
be a lot
mean in
easier.
specific? What would that mean in specific terms then? If you talked about a modern consumerized front end, what is that SRM? Is that mobile? And then an industrial back end, which sounds really interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Well,
What
sure.
do I
I
actually
mean,
tangibly see there?
so here's the thing. I'll give you a couple of examples. If someone today were to say, I have a corrupted app, this application is not working, and they go to the service desk, and the service desk says, okay, put in a ticket, and then maybe 3 or 4 days later on IT's time, they call them back, and they say, you're in luck. We have a 16-page document that will walk you through every single step and every single hidden folder and every DLL you've got to examine and test and possibly delete to be able to make sure that this corrupted app is not hurting anything else, and then you can remove it and try and install another instance, and we'll give you all these guidelines and these apps, and I'm going to email it to you right now. May I please close the ticket? If you did something like that, people would laugh you right off the dice. I mean,
Yeah.
in order to be able to have these users have this kind of thing, there needs to be able to have a link from the user into the support organization, integrated over into some sort of operational way to take control of that laptop, be able to see it and understand what problems that application is having, and then be able to fix it right then and there. And that type of process needs to be closed loop with monitoring and standardization on technology. And if those simple little things can happen, you're going to have renegade users on your hand. So
Yeah.
industrializing the back end is take a look at where your maturity is, decide on a common goal that isn't too much, be able to decide what processes and technology you're going to standardize on, then integrate those to the level that you both feel comfortable. I'm talking operations and support, and then be able to advertise that as a service to your end users so that they understand that you're working toward being able to give them a way to consume these things in a way that they like, in a way that they need, almost before they even ask for it. Then all of a sudden they're proud of their IT. All of a sudden they brag about how their IT knows what they need and how they want it. And all it takes is just making sure that you decide on technology, process, and the standards that you're going to set, and then execute them in the back office.
Is this going to be more and more important as today's worker become more and more IT intense?
Only
It
if
shouldn't
staying
take.
out of jail, only if staying out of jail and not paying fines is important to a business. Only if
It's
making sure the users have everything they need to be able to do their jobs and create business continuity. Only if the adage of, well, if we just leave this broken toaster on a workbench long enough, it'll fix itself, is not the way people think. You know, there is a revolution in how services are being consumed and how the back office needs to industrialize to be able to bring the user into those expectations. And those who don't do it, they are going to be left behind, and they're going to be low on the totem pole and won't be as successful as other enterprises that do.
when you talk to analysts, when you talk to customers and partners, and you evangelize this view that you share with us here today, what's their response? Are they already on the same page as you, or is this brand
Well,
new stuff? Where are we as a market in
I
general
have
right now?
actually been talking about this a lot in industry forums and shows and user groups, etc. And what's hysterical is within 3 or 4 minutes of me starting this context of this presentation and this dialogue, I see 10% of the room looking at their toes and sort of nodding their head up and down. So it's like it's clear that this is an issue. It's clear that it wasn't just an issue for me when I tried to market something 7, 8, 9 years ago that took a process change management piece and an automated software provisioning tool and tried to put them together and didn't do so well because both sides, one was in support and one was in operations, they just weren't ready yet to be able
Yeah.
to make the users important enough. But today, you just have to be able to do it. And when I present these things, people are just nodding their heads up and down, and they're saying, yes, we have that. How do we get this going? What can we do to broker a better relationship between these guys? And ultimately, I think the thing is, you got to take a look at what your users need, take a look at what it is you want to evolve to in the future, and be really honest about where the processes are now. And a lot of them tend to agree with that. I hear it from a lot of the people that I present to about this over time, and they're like filling me in saying, hey, I actually had lunch with my operations director today. It was great, and we talked about this, that, and the other, and they're on the same page. They just have a couple of stumbling blocks, right? The conversation about an operational CMDB versus a reconciled CMDB, that is a big thing for operations. They don't understand how service support can live in a world that isn't real time right now. Give it to me. So those kinds of things, when they start to get discussed, can really net out good compromise. The thing is that people have to admit they got a problem, identify their own 10-step program to get back on track, and then actually start executing, start talking, and finding a place to go. And the thing they have in common are the users.
Yeah. Well, that's the irony of it all. What's the next event you're going to speak on? If I want to hear more about this, where can I catch you on the road?
It looks like I'll probably be speaking about this at the Fusion concert. It is kind of a concert. The ITSMF Fusion show in Nashville in October on this.
Great.
And there is actually a white paper up at bmc.com that talks about getting IT support and IT operations together for happy users that anybody going to bmc.com can find. And you can tweet me at Bruce Campbell #1 if you'd like to talk about it anymore. And I only talk about this because it's a personal experience I had in marketing a great product that otherwise failed pretty badly because ops and support just weren't ready to get along and grow up, frankly.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot to be learned here. And I appreciate you sharing your experience about this. The intensity that today's business consumer, are demanding from the IT organization is sometimes overwhelming. And just throwing new tools or new ideas on old problems is not a day. We have to come together on an organization.
No, they got to decide. They got to decide: do they want to be in the business of managing incidents forever, or do they want to be in the productivity business?
Yeah.
And the latter is going to require support and operations to get their acts together, no question.
If you want to build a productivity desk, Bruce Campbell is the guy for you. I appreciate his time here. That's all for this week. Next Zoo, we're going to invite product manager from BMC, Simon King. He's our head of product development there. He will share with all of us what's next. What's going to happen in the future of ITSM. Until then, take care. Be safe.